In this video, I will look at how device drivers work in Windows. A device driver is software installed on your computer which communicates directly with hardware installed on your computer. Using a device driver means that software installed on your computer does not need to understand how to communicate with a device directly. Software on your computer only needs to understand how to access the framework installed on the computer to access the device. In any computer systems, there are a number of devices that may be at work. Most systems will have a hard disk, sound card, and a graphics card. At some point, you decide to replace your hard disk with a RAID device. You need to install the RAID device driver on your system in order to read the RAID device, assuming Windows does not already have the device driver available. An application running on the computer does not interface directly with the hard disk, so changing the hard disk from a single hard disk to a RAID device does not cause any problems with the applications. You could also change the sound card and graphics card as well by simply removing the hardware and installing the new hardware. Once complete, you need to make sure that the device driver is installed correctly for the new device. If the sound card was later changed to a different kind of sound card, for example, using a USB sound card, no changes would be required to any application running on the system to access the sound card. The way the sound card works would be dramatically different from the original. For example, the device driver for the sound card could save the sound data to the hard disk rather than play it through a device. All this could be done completely transparently to the device. The problem with device drivers is that they interface with the hardware of the computer directly, and thus a buggy or poorly written device driver can crash a computer system. The blue screen of death is synonymous with badly written device drivers. Hopefully, the blue screen will happen in the office behind closed doors. However, this has not always been the case. Blue screen errors have happened on news boards, the Chinese Olympics, and even a concert, just to name a few. You will always have blue screen errors and computer crashes if the hardware on your computer starts failing. Computers overheating and malfunctioning hardware can cause blue screen errors. Windows in the old days developed a name for itself by being unreliable and buggy. Looking into the crashes for Windows 2000 showed that 89% of blue screen crashes were caused by third-party device drivers. The development of these drivers is outside of Microsoft's control. Microsoft did get a lot of bad press due to badly written drivers, and it was generally believed that this was due to Microsoft's operating system being unreliable. In order for Windows to become more reliable, something had to be done to make the device drivers more reliable. One change that Microsoft introduced is WHQL drivers. WHQL drivers, or Windows Hardware Quality Labs, is a process Microsoft runs on third-party device drivers. For a few $100s, Microsoft will test a third-party device driver with a range of hardware for one particular range of Windows operating systems. Device drivers that have gone through the WHQL process can display the logo compatible with Windows 7. Even though the cost is not too high, you can imagine that if you released a device driver for a number of different operating systems, the cost goes up quickly. Also, each time the device driver is changed, the process must be repeated and the fee paid again. For this reason, you may see that the latest device driver released from a manufacturer for a piece of hardware is often not a WHQL driver. Using a WHQL driver means that Microsoft tested the driver for quality and found that the device driver was reliable. Companies that make a lot of revision to their drivers are not going to want to pay the cost to have every device driver tested by Microsoft for every device driver they release. Once the device driver has completed the WHQL process, the device driver is signed using a Microsoft certificate. Microsoft are not the only people who can sign drivers. The manufacturer of the driver can purchase a certificate and sign the driver themselves. By doing this, When you install the driver, you can be assured that the device driver is from the manufacturer and has not been changed or been corrupted. With the release of Windows XP 64-bit, Microsoft made a big change to device drivers to help make Windows more reliable. They required all device drivers to be signed. All 64-bit systems since then have had the same requirement. Although it is possible to install an unsigned driver on Windows 7 64-bit, this is disabled by default. Let's have a look at how to manage devices on Windows 7. There are a number of different ways to launch the Device Manager on Windows 7. To launch it from the Start menu, enter in Device Manager, and then select Device Manager from the list. The default view for Device Manager shows all the devices on your system sorted by their type. If you have a device that is not functioning correctly, it will appear in the list with an exclamation mark. When you perform a fresh install of Windows 7, it is a good idea to check Device Manager to make sure that all the devices on the system are installed correctly. In most cases, problems like these are caused by Windows not being able to find a device driver or the device not being present in the system. To install a device driver, right-click the device and select the option Update Driver Software. If you have a device on your system you want to disable, you can select the option Disable. This stops the device driver from being loaded in the system. If your system is crashing due to a device driver, disabling the device driver may help your troubleshooting process to find the problem device. You can see that when I disable the device driver, the device now has a down arrow next to it. If you decide you don't need the device driver installed on the system anymore, you can right-click on the device and select the option Uninstall. Just remember, if the hardware is still in the system, Windows may redetect the hardware and try to install a device driver for it. Nowadays, Windows will detect most devices when you plug them in. If you have a device driver that has not appeared, you can select the option Scan for Hardware Changes. This option is also available by right-clicking the root. To get more information about the device, right-click the device and select the option Properties. On the first screen, you can see the status of the device. In this case, the device is listed as disabled. On the Advanced tab, you can see the option for the device. In the case of a network device, you can set options such as the speed of the network adapter, the flow control, and a number of different options. Every device will be different, and some devices may not have options that you can set. The next tab, the Driver tab, gives you more information about the driver itself. First, you can see the driver release date and the version of the driver. If you select the option Driver Details, you can see the files that the driver is using. If you wish to update the device driver, you can select the option to update driver and browse to a new driver you have downloaded or download one through Windows Update. If you have problems with the device driver after you have updated it, you can select the option Rollback Driver to go back to the previous driver. Next, you can enable or disable the driver, and finally, you can uninstall the device driver if you no longer require it. On the Details tab, you can get information about the hardware itself. As you can see, there is a lot of information you can access. If you are not sure what device the hardware is, you can select the option Hardware IDs. This will give you the unique hardware IDs for the device. If you put this value into a search engine, you should be able to identify the hardware and thus find a driver for the device. The Device Manager can also be used to configure resources on the computer. The auto configuration used in Windows, called Plug and Play, has come a long ways since Windows 95 days. In the old days of computers, you may have needed to configure the hardware manually, so two devices were not using the same resource. This occurred because of two reasons. First, resources on the computer were more limited than what they are today, and also devices were not able to auto-configure themselves as well as they can today. If I close out of here and go to the Properties for my display adapter and select the tab Resources, you can see the resources that are allocated to this device. Down at the bottom, you have the option Enable Automatic Settings, which is grayed out. Most hardware nowadays will auto-configure themselves, and resource conflicts should be very rare. If you do have a resource conflict, you can deselect the option Use Automatic Settings and configure the settings manually. Device Manager shows only the most commonly used devices by default. If I go into the menu and select Show Hidden Devices, all the devices present on the system will be displayed. Now, there are a lot more devices present, and there is even a section for non-plug-and-play devices. The devices that are shown are hidden for good reason, and it is very rare that you would need to make changes to them, but if you do, it is nice to know how to find them. If I select the option Devices by Connection, you can see which devices are connected to which device. Most devices will be under the ACPI section. The view is a little bit cluttered, so I will deselect Show Hidden Devices. On most systems, most devices will be located under the PCI bus. If I select the option Resources by Type, I can now see which resources a device is using. If you are troubleshooting a resource conflict, which are very rare nowadays, this view will help you determine where the conflict is. In a lot of cases, using the Device Manager will be enough to resolve device problems. There are some more advanced tools to configure device drivers available in Windows 7, which is the topic of our next video.